Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's best Centric episode for every character of Star Trek Enterprise. So this is a Patreon requested video, requested by Patreon Kyrie091. It's also part of a series where I've been naming my favorite episode for each character in each Star Trek show. So I'm now up to Star Trek Enterprise. Well, I will be naming my personal favorite Centric episode for each character of Enterprise. Now, I gotta admit, Enterprise is a lot harder to do. It's not as much of an ensemble show as many of the other shows. So for some of the other characters, it was harder to choose. And I will admit that there is not much variety in the episodes I choose in this list, and you'll soon know what I mean. But if you recall, Star Trek Enterprise towards the end was quite serialized, and so it had multiple episodes and several story arcs, and you may notice a reoccurring theme in particular story arcs popping up again and again, because as I said, this one was a bit hard for me, and obviously not as big of a fan as Enterprise as some of the other Star Trek shows, to be completely honest. So when I usually do these videos, I usually also, in addition to saying my picks, I also say Kyrie091's picks, because he usually picks his own episodes for each character. However, this time, not necessarily. So I'll just read what he wrote. It says, I don't have any rankings for Centric episodes for Enterprise, to be honest. I've only watched Enterprise once and I don't remember too well. For Hoshi, I'll pick the dumb mansion one. For Mayweather, I guess the cave one where he gets hurt right away and is totally useless despite being there because he's an expert. And for Trip, I picked the one where he died because he dies, and that's nice. Oh, and for Archer, I picked the one where he says ass, because this is new and edgy Trek. You can tell because the captain says ass. Oh, and Dr. Phlox, the one where he smiles all weird. Seriously, it's a creepy smile. And that's my list. Anyway, so that means, the Hoshi one, what's that? I can't even remember what it's called. That's the Beauty and the Beast one. And then the Mayweather, oh god, I can't remember that one either. But that's the one where they went in the caves to retrieve the Denobulans or whatever. I'm pretty sure it's that one. Now, Trip, he's actually picking the finale. These are the Voyages, which a lot of people hate because Trip dies. And I do agree, it's nice when Trip died. Anyway, Archer and Dr. Phlox's picks is actually the same episode, because that's the first episode, Broken Bow. That's the one where the doctor smiles all weird, like they digitally enhance his smile, and it looked fucking bizarre. And they might have done that some other times, but I know they did that in the first episode. And where Archer says ass, again, he might have said it in other episodes, but I know he said it in the first episode, so it's the first episode pick for both of them. Anyway, I'm going to get a bit more detailed in my picks, though. So anyway, let me go ahead and get started. Of course, each pick is just my personal opinion. Sometimes the episode isn't necessarily a Centric episode. It just happens to be my favorite involving that character. So, that being said, we'll get started with the big old Captain Jonathan Archer. And my pick for Archer is Damage. Now, this was a tough one, actually. Now, I knew I had to put Damage on my list because that's my favorite Enterprise episode. I almost wanted it has a T'Pol episode, but no, what I really love about it is the tough decision that Archer has to make. That this is basically Archer's In the Pale Moonlight, and it's also Archer's Year of Hell. And so I think this made the most sense as an Archer-centric episode, even though arguably this episode is more of an ensemble, but as most episodes do, I think it focuses primarily on Archer. And the other episodes I was thinking about was God, what else was I thinking about with Archer? Oh, Twilight. I was considering Twilight, but I don't know. That was different because Archer was lost all of his memories and was under this weird condition. I think this is a better exploration of Archer as a character. And not some alternate version of Archer from some fake future that never happens. And so, this, of course, is the episode where he has to decide to behave like a criminal, to behave like a petty thug in order to save the human race, essentially, in order to get this piece of equipment that they desperately need in order to make this rendezvous, which they desperately need to make in order to save humanity. And so he goes through great lengths to act like a common thief and a pirate and a raider and attack innocent people who are only trying to help him. And the way Archer tries to justify this to himself and even arguing with T'Pol in an amazing scene. So gotta pick this episode for my pick for Archer. So next we'll get to T'Pol, and my pick for T'Pol is Awakening, which is the second episode in the trilogy, in the Vulcan trilogy in season 4, the Kirshara trilogy, or however you want to call it. I chose Awakening in particular, even though all 3 episodes deal with Vulcans because they're on Vulcan, but this one I think centers on T'Pol a bit more than the other 2 because it deals with her mother and her discovering that her mother is part of this rebel renegade group of pacifists called Sirenites that are being blamed for bombing the Federation outpost. However, or the embassy, not Federation, sorry, it's Enterprise time. The Earth embassy, sorry. Got other Star Treks in my mind. Anyway, and she discovers that her mother insists that the Sirenites are not terrorists and that they've been lied to. And T'Pol has to deal with that, and at the same time has to deal with Archer getting the Katra of Serac, and how T'Pol doesn't believe that and thinks is bullshit, but she has to come to terms with it. So I think overall this is, and also, by the way, her mother's death happens at the end of this episode, and she has to cope with that as well. So overall, a pretty strong episode for T'Pol. So next we'll get over to Charles Tucker III, or Trip, my favorite character. Now, if you don't recognize sarcasm, that's sarcasm. Anyway, with Trip, I actually had a couple of episodes I was thinking of. I was thinking of Similitude, but then I ultimately decided to get against that because that's not actually Trip. That's a clone of Trip. Now, I suppose I could have done that anyway, and I will get fishy with a different character later on in this video, where I could have, where I'm going to be just as suspect as Similitude would have been. But ultimately, I was like, no, let's get to an episode that actually focuses on the actual Charles Tucker. So I was also I was also thinking of what's that episode called? The damn it, the Cogenitor. Thank you. Yes, the Cogenitor, because I think that was a pretty powerful episode. But that's an episode. I thought that was a good episode because it shows Trip being an idiot. and so I thought, no, let's not choose an episode where Trip is an idiot. So I decided to go with, and arguably I don't like this episode as much as the other 2, but I still decided to go with The Forgotten, because that is definitely a very strong Trip episode, as it deals with him coming to terms with his sister's death, which he had been avoiding and hiding over anger. It shows him like having his outbursts and yelling at the Xindi who designed the weapon that killed his sister, but also coincidentally is humanity's best hope of saving Earth. And Archer's not too happy about Trip yelling at their best hope to save Earth, but then and Trip has to deal with write a letter of condolences to for someone who died in the recent Xindi attack, and he's just dealing with it and is bringing up a lot of emotions. And then T'Pol tries to console him, and it was a really powerful episode for Trip. So. Yeah, I do have to go with The Forgotten for Charles Tucker III. So, now we will get to Dr. Phlox. What's it say? Optimism, Captain. Anyway, my pick for Dr. Phlox is actually unique compared to most of my other picks. And it's going to be Dear Doctor. I think the only episode I'm choosing from season 1. Controversial episode, one that I really like, actually. I thought this was a great episode. And I thought this was easily the best Phlox episode because it explores his character while it's focused on him as he's writing a letter. It's kind of like Data's Day-esque, where it's the day in the life of, and it has like him writing a letter to his human friend on Denobula, and so you get his perspective on all the events that are happening, and you learn more about him, learn more about the Denobulans, and then Phlox introduces the concept of non-interference, which will likely be the basis of the Prime Directive. Archer says, maybe one day we might have a directive. That was so dumb. But no, good episode, and it had an interesting moral dilemma, which, a lot of people incorrectly and are objectively wrong when they state that it's genocide, when clearly it's not, because they do nothing. And you cannot, I'm sorry, but people try to argue with me saying that it is possible to commit genocide by doing nothing. Are so laughably wrong. It's just unbelievable. But anyway, you can't commit genocide by doing nothing. By definition, you have to do something. Could you imagine if the people brought Archer and Phlox to the ICJ and said, oh, they're guilty of committing genocide because they did nothing? The ICJ would laugh them out of the court. But anyway, sorry, you need to do something. Withholding something is essentially doing nothing, and that's not our case. Sorry, I'm getting off. I could just get fired up over that one. That's ridiculous they committed genocide. And moreover, I agree with Phlox. I think Phlox makes a good point. There's these people, the Mank, who are being subjugated by these other people, by the other aliens on the planet, and if they interfere with nature, which is what they would be doing, they wouldn't be stopping a genocide. They would be interfering with nature. They would be playing God, and that might spell doom for the Mank. The Mank could be wiped out in an actual genocide if they give these aliens the cure. So instead of deciding what to be done, I am God, I am going to decide what's happening for this planet. Instead of doing that, they do nothing, which is what they should do. And Phlox sort of guides Archer to the right decision, which it is. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, I think that's a really good episode. It's a good Phlox episode. Really works for me. Anyway, let's get into the next character, which is Reed. Mr. Reed. Malcolm Reed. And my pick for Reed is not a Reed-centric episode, because do they exist? I don't know if they really do. There's that one where they're trying to give a birthday present and they decide that he likes pineapple. But that's stupid. That was dumb. I'm not going to pick that. Or that one where he was like Section 31, but that was more of a side plot, and that was kind of dumb too. So no, my pick for Reed is arguably not a Reed-centric episode, but I kind of have to, and is the episode Countdown, which is the penultimate episode of Season 3, which is action-packed episode that deals with the end of the Xindi arc. I chose this as particularly for a Reed episode because it deals with him sort of the relationship that he had with Major Hayes and how they're sort of they work together and they're coming to terms, and after feuding all season, they sort of come together and sort of make peace. And then Major Hayes is killed, and Reed has to give this really powerful speech to all the other Makos about how Hayes had died, and that he died serving Starfleet or serving Earth. And that he asked for volunteers to come with him on the dangerous mission they likely won't return from, and everyone volunteers. And that's a trope I usually hate, but in this case I totally bought it. Brought a tear to my eyes. Very powerful Reed moment, so I had to pick that as the Reed episode. So next is Mayweather, who I guess he has a Centric episode. There's that one with a couple, the one where the colony ship, or was not the colony ship, but the transporting cargo ship or whatever, the one in season 1 and then the one in season 2 with his family, with the Horizon, I believe it was. And those episodes suck. I'm not going to choose those. So remember when I said I was going to be cheeky and pick an episode that wasn't really that character? Well, I'm going to do that with Mayweather because I kind of have to. And that is the Observer Effect. Because it's not actually Mayweather. It's just, it's a, what do they call it? Organian. Taking control of Mayweather's body. But come on, it's the actor. Anthony, what's his name? Anthony something. Anyway, it's the actor who's playing him. It's the same actor, and it's Mayweather's body. Close enough. And it was it's really the most that actor had to do for the entire show. Is really he finally got to do something when they had an alien take over Mayweather's body so they could actually make that character interesting. But yeah, I know it's a bit of a cheat, but I'll have to go with the Observer Effect for Mayweather. Anyway, next we'll move over to Hoshi Sato. And again, whenever she had a Centric episode, it kind of sucked. There was the Beauty and the Beast one with that stupid alien from season 3 who tried to, what's the word I'm looking for? Why am I losing my words tonight? I don't know. Tried to gaslight. That's what I'm looking for. Tried to gaslight her into staying with him, which was a stupid episode. And then there was the stupid transporter. What's it called? Vanishing Point, where she was like, "Oh, I'm vanishing." It's so fucking obvious. The episode was in her head, and goddamn, do I ever hate that episode. So no, I'm not gonna pick one of those. I mean, there's that Fight or Flight one, which is the second episode of the show, which kind of focused on her, and that was okay, I guess. But I'm going to choose an episode that's more than just okay, but again, arguably not a Hoshi-centric episode, but whatever. I'm going to go with 0 Hour. This was, I think, her strongest episode, even if she wasn't the central character. That would have been Archer, who was just charging down the platform with explosions going around in his hero mode. No. Now, this was a strong episode for her because she was, just went through this horrible ordeal of being tortured, and she was out of it, and she was suffering, and she had to go on this mission anyway, even though she was in really no condition to go, but she had to go to try to, help Archer save the human race. And even then, when she was like completely out of it and traumatized and suffering, she still did her duty, and she helped Archer find the correct code to stop the weapon and to even fought a couple of Xindi. I think it was her, and the actress did an amazing, I think it was easily her best performance in this episode. She did an amazing job. So I had to choose this for her Shisato. Now I wasn't going to choose In the Mirror Darkly and have Because the Emperor's Hoshi, because that was dumb, and it wasn't actually Hoshi anyway, or our Hoshi. Anyway, so next we'll do Shran. And Shran actually had more good episodes than some of these other characters, even though he was just a supporting character. But I think with Shran I went with United, which is the second part in the 3-part Andorian sort of Tellarite trilogy thingy that they had with the Romulans using this weird ship to attack other ships. United was the episode where he had to fight Archer to the death because, he challenged the Tellarite to the death, but Archer decided to take his place. And that was a very powerful episode for Shran. He had to deal with his emotions after having lost his fiancée, and how upset he was and how certain he was going to beat Archer, but he ended up losing because Archer cut off his antenna. So yeah, that was a really good Shran episode. So finally I'll get to Savol, the good old Vulcan ambassador, and there was the ceasefire in season 2, which was pretty decent. But actually with Savol, again, sticking to some themes here, I'm going to go with Kirshara. Because I didn't like Savol in seasons 1 and 2 because he was an asshole. He was obtuse to an absurd degree, so I really hated him sometimes in season 1 and 2. He wasn't that bad in Ceasefire, but still kind of annoying. Much better in season 4, where they actually made him an ally and not such an asshole, and made him actually a good character. And this episode in particular, where he was working with Trip to stop the Vulcans from attacking Andoria, but then Shran, captured him and tortured him, which again you get some amazing scenes with the late great Gary Graham, who played Savol, where he did a really good job playing someone being tortured. And it was powerful scenes too when he was like, we'll turn this thing up and get this over with. And and at the end he was there to once they defeat the evil Vulcans and they disband Central Command, he was there to be Archer's ally, his friend, really, and say, yes, humanity's ready to stand on its own. It was a very powerful moment. So, yeah, have to go with Kirshara for Savol. So, those are my episodes. As I said, it was very cheeky sometimes. And yeah, but those are the ones I'm going for the Enterprise crew. So thank you so much for watching, and be sure to check out my channel as I do continue to do many more Star Trek videos, and at the moment I'm covering season 3 of The Next Generation, so you can check out my channel for that and many more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that, and thanks a lot for watching.